Update on the Jasco situation. Will this make you happy?
No.
Okay.
All right.
Never mind.
Okay.
I thought it was good.
Fine.
I thought it was good. We can go to something else.
No, I'll update it.
Tim Hortons is tracking your bits.
No, that's not good news either, Luke. Let's talk Jasco. Last week, I talked about the situation where Jasco, the manufacturer of the motion sensing smart switches that I installed in my new house, refused to provide updated firmware for the switches after Jake and I experienced buggy behavior. We have since done a lot of troubleshooting. We've gone back and forth with Jasco, and there are a few noteworthy outcomes here. Outcome number one is that Jasco has publicly stated that they will engage with the community in good faith on the issue of firmware availability. Whether this ends up looking like you request it from them and they provide it, or a download page on their website, that's yet to be seen. But they've had high-level discussions internally, and it looks like that's something that's going to change.
Very good.
So that is excellent news.
Awesome. Great.
The bad news. Oh, more good news first. More good news. I don't know what was going on. Well, we have an idea what's going on. We'll give you more details on that in a moment. But I did manage to disable the motion sensor. So I went and I tried again. And remember that issue I had where I thought maybe a firmware update would fix not being able to disable the motion sensor on it? Well, I tried it and I was able to disable the motion sensor.
Gotta love when troubleshooting happens that way.
So
annoying.
Maybe I don't need new firmware. Also,
you should
in other
have
news,
access to new firmware anyway.
Jasco mixed up their hexadecimal and their binary, and the firmware. Hexadecimal and hold on. Let me double check.
I mean, that could be a thing, but I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, let's.
They actually talk to you about this in an email?
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
That's a lot of emails.
So they mixed up their. So when certifying the firmware with the Z-Wave Alliance, you must fill out the form using hexadecimal format. This was entered in as 32 and was incorrectly translated from to decimal as 50. The correct version for that certification should be 32. So the so-called 5.50 firmware is the one that I was using. They do not have updated firmware. They did send me the files, so I can try to reflash and see if that fixes any potential issue. Jake validated this already, so you don't have to check and see if there's
I'm not.
checks
out.
Yeah. But then I was able to disable the motion anyway. But then I was able to replicate the issue where I was not able to disable the motion because I went to adopt yet another switch and it actually grabbed the same device number within the Z-Wave JS thing in Home Assistant. And then neither of them would work properly until I disconnected both of them and then adopted them both again, and then they would work. So there could still be buggy behavior. We don't know whether that is on Home Assistant or I think it's zwave.js or something like that.
Completely regardless, you should still
Jasco.
be able to access the firmware and stuff.
Yes, you should still have access to firmware. I was still right to be mad about the fact that they would not give me firmware because I would have been far less mad if I just had bought a buggy product. I still would have been mad. I have also found bugs that have not been resolved. For example, the
by
timeout.
The firmware?
By anything.
Okay.
Yeah, by anything. So the timeout. So you would think, at least I believe that's what this parameter does. Disclaimer, I don't know, maybe it does something else entirely. I don't know. But I would think that on a motion sensor, a timeout field would affect how long it is until the motion sensor kicks back in. So if I were to turn it off, if it were to turn off, how long before it starts sensing again? And as it is, they're immediate out of the box. So you can press the button to leave the bathroom, and as you walk away, it'll turn back on. That's obviously not a desirable behavior, so I think that's what that field's supposed to do.
Okay.
Changing that does not appear to affect anything. There's also a vacancy mode. Vacancy mode's kind of cool. So occupancy mode turns on the light when it senses motion, and then turns off the light when it stops sensing motion, right? Vacancy mode will only turn on the light when you turn it on, and then it will turn it off when you leave. Vacancy mode does not appear to be functioning correctly. But again, I don't know whose fault that is, so I'm not going to point any fingers yet.
Sure.
What I do know is that there have been other developments. Seeing the problems that I was having with Jasco, I've had one of the switch companies that a lot of people actually said that I should check out in the comments under last week's WAN show. One of them reached out. Innovelli, I want to say. Yep. Innovelli reached out. AEO Tech reached out.
I think you mentioned Innovelli on the show.
And there's...
Yeah.
Yeah, so Innovelli reached out. AEO Tech reached out. And actually, there's another switch company that Jake found that is so cool.
You should have a battle.
Where
you should get like a sample set of switches from each one and have like a battle royale.
Realistically, that's what we probably should have done, but
no one lives.
We just like are very busy.
Die.
We're very busy people, and it's like it's tough. Oh,
but it's a video. It's content.
If you don't have time, you don't have time,
Content.
Luke. Okay, check these out, okay? Swidget. Apparently, these guys are... Oh, my... Stop. Enough. Apparently, these guys are Canadian.
Oh.
These are modular.
Oh.
Modular smart home switches.
What?
So they've got humidity sensors, motion sensors.
Whoa,
you can
that's
just put
cool.
like you can put a USB port in there. They're kind of fugly, in my humble opinion. Sorry, Swidget.
I don't think they're that bad.
But in terms of functionality, this looks flippin' amazing. So being able to just be like, yeah, hey, couldn't help noticing that it's a little humid in here. Don't mind me, gonna switch on your fan in the bathroom.
Do you care about the aesthetics of the Switch? If it felt good, if the haptics were good, would that overpower the aesthetics of the Switch?
That's far more important.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, that's the main reason that I didn't go with Caseta or whatever. Who's the parent brand for smart switches? Caseta, is it Lutron? Lutron. Yeah, that's why I didn't go with those, because they feel awful. Like, just abhorrent. If I ever have to actually use them with my fingers, it's like I feel guilty spending money on them. Like I can't believe I gave them money for
you want
this.
to reward that like terrible haptics.
Yeah,
haptics are important.
Way to cheap out in the most obvious user-facing kind of way. You idiots. Like just that kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's tough.
For sure.
So, Jasco situation, still developing. The first video on it is going to be edited when Jake's back from vacation, so whenever that happens, and we will hopefully get you guys completely up to speed. You'll get to live through the frustration with us. It's definitely worth a watch, just because I don't remember the last time my anger was that white hot. Man, when I was on the phone and they were like, "Sorry, sir, we do not provide firmware. That's proprietary." I'm like,
I do applaud their change of stance.
Me too. Credit where it's due.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is an enormous difference between having an ass backwards way of thinking and doubling down on it, and having an ass backwards way of thinking and someone honestly not that nicely.
Yeah. Sure.
Telling you that your way of thinking is ass backwards, and still having the maturity to self-reflect and go,
I respect that a ton. I think that's huge.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's time to change.
Yeah. And if they actually follow through fully, because there's still some follow through, right?
Yes.
But if they actually follow through fully, that's huge and very cool, and I respect it deeply.
But there's the public commitment. They are publicly in touch with Home Assistant. That's a big deal.
That's cool.
That's a huge deal for the DIY community. And the more, and you got to understand, like, there is absolutely attention on this. And seeing Jasco reverse, seeing Jasco embrace this, I guarantee you that'll put pressure on other players in the industry to take a more open approach. And that's what we need, because that's what's breaking smart home stuff. That's what's killing the adoption, is you've got all these horrible fragmented ecosystems. And, as a consumer, right? Let's say I couldn't afford to replace all the switches in my house, like the vast majority of people. Let's say I wanted to upgrade piecemeal. How do I know which one is still going to exist for me to actually get another one in a year or 2 years or 5 years? So knowing that these are open and they can all ultimately be tied together is
very cool.
It's critical.
You mentioned that you had a rant that's in a video that's coming up that's like the angriest you've been in a long time?
That's not really a question.
Is it worse than eggshell?
I think I was. Oof. So the thing about the
this was
paint
a question
issue,
brought by the audience.
yeah, the thing about the paint issue is that it had been like a slow burn, right? Like it had been one issue after another, after another, after another. We're still not done with the issues with those painters, by the way. Did I talk at all about how like they masking taped everything, even though no professional painter, in my opinion, should be masking everything off with tape like that? You should just know how to cut a straight line with a 3-inch brush because you're a professional. Anyway,
Didn't
point
David
is,
call you out like super hard?
masking tape. Who did?
I thought it was David called you out in some video because you did a line without masking, but it was all messy.
Yeah, it's good enough. It's better than what happens with masking tape,
Oh, okay.
especially if you leave it on for too long.
I don't know.
So they left the masking tape on too long, and there's places where once they finally ripped it away, because it's latex paint, it's kind of rubbery, it peels away a bunch of the freaking wall too. So then what? You're going to go back in with the sandpaper, go cut the line anyway. You might as well just cut it in the first place.
Yeah.
Basically. So it had been a bit of a slow burn because it was like one issue after another, after another, after another. Whereas the shock, the pure shock and awe of a company telling me that they have firmware, so that was a miscommunication, obviously. But the part that wasn't a miscommunication was that they do not provide them to clients. That just, it enraged me.
So this is another level.
Yeah, it's like sudden onset road rage versus like you've had a really long week and you're tired and irritable.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that guy cut me off! You know, like just, what?
Exciting.
Who does that?
Good.
Who takes the paper towel dispensers
Popcorn
out
moment.
of the building and cuts off the safety rails?
Did you film?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yvonne was actually the one who noticed it. I didn't even notice because I was just like, yeah, I'm chill, whatever. I spent like 2 summers of my life walking around on roofs. I don't care about like an open drop, but from a like safety regulatory standpoint, right?
You do have to care.
She was looking at it going, what?
Money, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, and thanks to Secret Lab for sponsoring this week's clips. Secret Lab chairs are engineered to keep you comfy, and with up to 5 years of warranty and a 49-day return policy, you're covered if anything goes wrong. Head to the link in the description to check out Secret Lab chairs today.